All right. Obviously, really excited to be back and continuing to play on in this playoff opportunity. Looking back at the game on Saturday, we maybe didn't play our best, and ultimately, some of that credit goes to Yale. I think in the midst of that game, there were several plays that maybe changed the course a little bit that didn't happen, but ultimately we did stack up enough plays to, open up a lead and then, be able to hang on, at the end. And, I think our guys, it was a great learning opportunity within that game. All this time of year is about is moving forward, and we're fortunate to be able to do that. I don't think we're lucky. I think we're fortunate because of making enough plays and ultimately a game that we can learn a lot from. I certainly want to address the post game, and our expectation as a football program is win or lose, we're going to show our opponents a level of respect, shake hands, go down, to the Sunny Holland end zone, sing the school song, and get back together and middle of the field and kneel down and have a team prayer. And sometimes the shaking hands piece and trying to tie that together with your opponent becomes a complicated piece. And it's my job as the head coach to do everything I can to protect our program. We want to represent our university in the best way possible. But ultimately, I care deeply about our players, and I want to protect them. And in the moments following that game, it was apparent that our two teams were interacting more than we needed to. And, in that moment, I wanted to protect Julius Davis in particular. He was in a situation that I didn't feel was great for him, and I wanted to get him out of that situation. And, the emotions, coming off a big win, a hard-fought game like that, in the moment certainly can get the best of you. And the last thing I wanted to do is for Julius to separate from his team, and keeping him on the field so that we could ultimately come together and finish with the team prayer was what we accomplished. Now, everybody's got a platform, and everybody can make a judgment, and that's the way the world works. Putting all of the context together sometimes isn't there for everybody to understand, and that's okay. Again, that's the world we live in. But I will tell you this, the relationship that Julius and I have is as strong as anybody on this team. And, how I understand him as a competitor, a very emotional competitor, and I think his respect for me in that regard is very clear. And while it might not have appeared that way, it is a relationship that is very strong. And ultimately, calmer heads were able to prevail, and we had our team prayer, and we went in the locker room and celebrated the victory. So, not the best way to finish that day, but a great learning opportunity. And again, my job is to protect our team, to protect our individuals on our team, but also to allow them to learn and grow. And I think for our football team, that was a great opportunity to learn and grow. And, the interactions were not just about one player. It was about more than that. And we need to be better as a football team, So we need to be able to shake hands, go sing the school song, kneel for the prayer, and go on and celebrate. And that's what we're going to intend to do moving forward. And I feel good about where we're at here on Monday relative to that situation. Opportunity with Stephen F. Austin now coming to play us. Very impressive team that, like us, lost their first two games and now has rattled off 11 consecutive victories. They won a rematch against Abilene Christian the other day, and they were very impressive in doing so. They're a good team, and we've seen them over the years. We were supposed to play them the last couple years, so they're a program that even though we haven't played them, there's a level of familiarity with. And it's an exciting matchup. And I said it the other day, when you're one of 8, you should expect really good teams that are in your path, and Stephen F. Austin certainly is that. So excited about the opportunity on Friday. Our familiarity with playing on Friday night in the quarterfinals, I think is a good thing. We played Friday night last year. We played Friday night back in 22. Expect a great crowd on Friday night. I know the crowd on Saturday was phenomenal, and we need that. That's part of the home field advantage that has to be behind you, and creating situations that a visiting team is unfamiliar with. And I know that was the case for Yale, and that certainly needs to be the case for Stephen F. Austin. So, again, excited about the opportunity, really looking forward to be back at home, playing in front of the best fans in the country, and, seeing if we can become one of 4.
Just in regards to Julius, is there anything more you can say about why he was kind of so fired up in that moment?
He's a fiery individual, and the individual he was interacting with was very fiery all through the game, and you'll be able to leave it there. And that's why I got him out of the situation, because I saw the situation needed to stop.
And when we see, coaches and players, on the sideline sometimes get into it, and that's happened obviously in other teams too. How do you kind of go about handling that, especially if it, gets physical, kind of like that one did?
I don't know that it really got physical. It probably appeared more physical than it really did. It was more, I was just trying to calm him down. And that's, at the end of the day, it's really important that I know our individuals on our team. And that's where I would say with the interaction that we had is not the first, I'd say, calming down operation, situation, whatever, that we've had. And it was obviously right there for everybody to see, and that's okay, I guess. I mean, I wanted to calm him down. I wanted to be able to finish kind of our post-game piece the way it was supposed to be finished. And I feel like I do know him very well, and I think he certainly respects me, and whether anybody thinks otherwise, that's their opinion. So it's again, everybody can make a judgment, and that's the way the world works.
Coach, do you think it's beneficial that this team had to face a little pressure in the first playoff game, and kind of going forward, how that might benefit you?
Well, I think not playing maybe to your best and finding a way to win is usually part of everybody's journey. And we've been rattling off some pretty good performances, and to be in a situation that it wasn't all coming together necessarily. That's okay as long as you get on the other side of it, I guess. So to work through a little adversity, to not panic, to have that sense of urgency that somehow, some way we got to figure this out. I think that's the way the second half played out. We're up 21-6 with 4 minutes and change left. We're moving the ball. It looks like we're gonna maybe run away from the adversity, and then we created some adversity for ourselves when Justin coughed the football up. And then they score, and then we get an onside kick, but we can't quite put the game away. So that could have ended a lot differently, but at the end of the day, it hopefully is a great opportunity for us to learn and grow from. And you pay the price for maybe not working out exactly how you wanted to, but you win. And this time of year, that is the bottom line.
Coach, what's it going to take to have a successful day on the ground going against Stephen F. Austin, a team that allows you to be 8 yards per game?
Well, I think we got to do what we do. I do think that's, how we match up with them versus how many of the teams they have played have chosen to match up with them, I think are maybe two different things. So we have to be able to establish ourselves on the ground and still be as balanced as possible. I think that was one thing on Saturday. Our run pass rhythm wasn't great. It wasn't always that the pass wasn't setting up the run. It was, our run game at times wasn't allowing us maybe the opportune situations to throw the football either. So we got to be able to run it, and we got to be able to throw it with a higher level of efficiency than we did the other day. And I'm confident our guys will, our coaches will put together a really good game plan, and our guys will go out there and do everything they can to execute.
Just in their secondary, what type of challenges does the Lumberjack secondary present?
I think they're sound. I think first and foremost, and then they can get after the quarterback. So it's twofold. I think the pressure they've been able to put on opposing quarterbacks has allowed the secondary to play. Mostly play coverage, honestly. They're more of a zone coverage team than a super aggressive man-to-man. Not that they won't play some man-to-man, but it's really, it's from the front back. You gotta be able to protect first and foremost, and not allow them to, get after you with four guys rushing. I think that's one thing you see over and over again. They've been able to get pressure with four guys, and when you can cover with seven. Your ability to cover is that much better. So, our ability to protect and establish the run game and all those things is going to allow for the passing game to be what it needs to be.
Base 4-2-5 for them.
They're an odd front team. I mean, personnel-wise, they'll slide in and out of, playing three down. Their coverage schemes are more, nickel-oriented coverage schemes, but they're multiple front.
Just more on the Julius front. In terms of his playing time, I think there won't be any repercussions.
No, I think we're settled on that. I feel good about where we're at. We had a conversation shortly thereafter. I know he made, I think a real sincere post and had a lot of heartfelt things to say, and we'll move forward.
Sure. And then in terms of Stephen F. Austin's just offense, just anything that kind of stands out on that side?
Well, they're led by a quarterback that we have some familiarity with. We didn't, Sam Vidlak didn't play against us back in 23, but he was the quarterback initially and sharing time with Clifton McDowell over at the University of Montana. So we saw him on film. He's got a really good arm, and his ability to throw the football does drive it for them. They got good receivers, and they got a good enough running game. So I think their ability to be explosive is certainly a piece of it. Their ability to be balanced is a piece of it, but how he goes and he's got really good ability certainly is the most important thing. So like any week when it's a quarterback-driven opponent, we got to be able to put pressure on him. We got to make him feel uncomfortable. And I think for us to do that, it doesn't create, or we don't have to create miracles by any means. Our guys just really have to play well, and that's going to be what it's going to take this time of year.
Just in terms of that situation last year, is that on your guys' mind at all, in terms of them dropping out of the game, or that's just in the past? Or?
You know what? It was unfortunate. I think the timing, it happened at the end of May. I was really looking forward to our Texas guys being able to play in Texas this season. But beyond that, I don't know. I mean, it happened, and we move on. Right, Leon?
Injury-wise, Xavier went out, and Neil
was
ill, right?
Neil is dealing with an illness, and that's he has been since Thursday. So now we're to Monday. So it's certainly our hope that he can work through that. He's a key piece to our defense. And then like typically happens, the spot that is a little bit vulnerable, then another injury happens. So, Xavier's going to be out. I don't know if that's out, but he's going to be out for this week for sure. And, he was really playing more and playing well. So we'll miss him on defense. We'll miss him on special teams. No matter what, it taxes Bryce and Cole a little bit more. Ryan Crea is going to have to step up. He's been kind of the outside looking in for a while. It's certainly our hope, though, we do get Neil back. Otherwise, I do think we got out of that game. It was a physical game, but I think we got out of that game with nothing more than, let's say bumps and bruises and those types of things. And it's a shorter week, so getting, ourselves moving forward, we're already very much in that mode. You look forward to Neil getting healthy so he can be out there on Friday night.
You guys aren't a heavy blitz team, but the last two Caden picks have both happened with linebacker blitzes, even though the quarterback wasn't necessarily rushed. Do you think that maybe had an effect on those plays?
Yeah, I think the one on Saturday, Caden did a really good job of almost baiting the throw too, and it was the backup was in there, number 3 was in there, probably an ill-advised throw to some degree, but he's maybe on his heels just a little bit, so we keep saying right place, right time for Caden. I think that's who he is, and so that was probably a combination, but it was it's definitely a real good play by him. Making the quarterback maybe feel like he had something, and then the quarterback being pressured a little bit.
And you had a 6 DB look that led to a stop on a third down early. I guess can you speak to that?
Yeah, I think having a dime package in, it gets us down to one backer, and in particular with where we were at with the backer depth going into the game, I think that was part of the thought process. I think as Taki came back, let's say over the last month, it's something we've been working through. It's really the first time we've had it show up on a game day. But in those obvious passing situations, getting more guys that can cover ground out there is a smart thing. And like I said, in particular with our linebacker depth right now.
Coach, on both sides of the ball, Caden and Titan, overcoming injuries early in their career, now being captains and major contributors. Do you think there's something to the rest of the group kind of seeing what they had to overcome and how much it means to them to be out there on the field?
No question. I think there's a little overlap with both those guys, but you look back really at 21, 22, and really 23 with Titan. Even as a true freshman, he was out, and then Caden. Really 23, 24. I know those guys have provided inspiration because those are two really solid human beings that our guys look up to. But then beyond that, the example, and a lot of times it's easy to be woe is me when you're down and out, especially when you're down and out multiple times. But that was never the case with those two, and I think whether they rubbed off on each other, I don't know, but I know the effect they've had on their teammates is hard to quantify. And it's a scenario like with Caden being elected a captain. I think he was like, well, I haven't really played. Well, you've played enough, but the impact that you've made with who you've been is why he was put in that situation. So, and Titan certainly, he's a little further removed from those injuries, thankfully. But I know that that was multiple years where he just kept coming back, and those two are what you want, and guys that really appreciate the opportunity, appreciate this place, and will do everything they can to keep moving forward.
A lot of people, when a game like that happens, blame the bye or something like that. I know obviously previous second round games haven't been that way, but is there anything you detected just maybe mentally or emotionally going in?
Well, I think a little bit of the unknown of what is this team gonna bring to the table, maybe, but that's not to say we knew tons about Tennessee Martin. I know we've played them twice in that round. I know the other one was Weber, I believe. So I don't know. I think sometimes that's the way it goes. We had played with an incredible amount of I think emotion, a high level of production in two very big games leading into the bye opportunity, and I thought we practiced really well, and at the end of the day, Yale did enough things to make it very interesting. So I think it's all those things, and it, you're glad that at a minimum we got on the other side of it. There's obviously the one team ranked ahead of us didn't do that, and that's a really hard pill to swallow. So, we did enough to win. I do think our group has continued to be in that mindset of, okay, how can we continue to improve? And that game will provide a lot of opportunity for improvement.
And they got some PBUs on some DB blitz, especially Kamara. Was that something overall that you think caused some issues?
Well, yeah, I think Justin didn't have the ability or the patience maybe to navigate the first one. I know the other one, he was free, and he probably should have flipped the protection and thrown the other way if we're going to get in the weeds on that, because he hasn't had a lot of balls knocked down, but there was I think those were 2 third downs that he had knocked down in the first half. They had a good call into a screen we had set up one time that I think essentially ended up being another knockdown football. So, sometimes it's right call, right time defensively that frees a guy up. Sometimes it's as simple as, okay, if we'd have slid the other way and thrown the other direction and had a different angle for a throw, it would have worked out a little differently. So yeah, I think they did some things to keep us off balance, and ultimately our passing game wasn't as nearly as efficient as we'd have liked.
Coulter, what do you got?
Coach, on the Sam Vidlac note, he's been really good all year, but he played exceptionally well on Saturday. So do you feel like you have a quarterback that's sort of peaking, coming to Bozeman on Saturday to prepare for, on Friday to prepare for?
I think that's fair. Yeah, he was. You can see watching like this progression of him all season. A guy that's clearly gaining confidence in whether you say he's taking more chances or he's just executing more on those chances. It's a little bit of both, and that to me exudes confidence. And he's got good guys. He's throwing to guys that are getting open at the same time, but he's having through the course of the year having to really make some tight throws. And I do think his arm talent is showing up more and more as you watch the progression of the season. So yes, he's probably playing the best he's played all year, and that's I'm sure what he's been geared up for, to peak at this time.
The one crossover game was against Cal Poly. Stephen Abbasi played Cal Poly, and they held him in check. I think that's the only game he played from start to finish where he threw for under 200. So you look at that one a little bit more since you have more familiarity with Cal Poly.
Well, we'd watched it, when we did play Cal Poly, and I know Cal Poly didn't play very well offensively in that game, turned it over a bunch. I suppose there's this level of comparison you can make a little bit because it is a common opponent. I know that's a long time ago. It was back in September, so you still probably hone on the more recent situation, but you certainly do have a comparable opponent, which I know is different than our opponent last week.
From my experience covering him before, he's good at throwing the ball down the field. Do you still see that in Vidlac?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. He's capable of making all the throws. I think he's made a lot of impressive throws on the move. I don't remember that so much from watching him back, in 23. So he's maybe added that to his game. He's a pretty complete passer, I would say, as far as what he can do. He's not a big runner by any means, but he's athletic enough to extend some plays, and he's been impressive. There's no denying that.
You mentioned just having these Friday night games before, having experience in that and having a short week. What do you like about your team's experience in that helps you get prepared for Friday night?
Well, we've been through this routine. Adding a regular season game in 21, this will be the 4th Friday night game we play. I know even having this quarterfinal week overlap with finals and graduation ceremonies on Friday, we've been through that before. So I think just that our guys look and say, well, this isn't that big a deal. I guess that's the biggest thing. Your schedule changes, it condenses a little bit, but we've done this before and we have a plan. So it's not a matter of our guys, hey, how are we going to do this with the condensed week? Okay, we know how to do it. I think that's the biggest thing, having experience, and I think our guys love playing in Bobcat Stadium at night. We've been able to do that a couple times this year, and our crowds at night have been phenomenal. So I think there's a piece to that. Hey, heck yeah, let's put the game on Friday night. Let's light it on fire and let's see what we can do.
What are some of the challenges of when the guys are in finals week too? Because that's probably a lot more pressure than a lot of people realize, right?
Yeah, I get to maneuver a little different schedule. In some ways, it's a lighter schedule for some guys, and then some, certainly the added pressure of finishing out strong is there. So I think you work at it from an individual perspective. Just what guys maybe need a little bit more. Whether it's time or accommodations for us to work around. We're finishing a little bit earlier in the morning, but just a slight adjustment. We're not practicing as long anyways. So, no, I think it's with some individuals, it's more challenging. With the greater amount of team, it's probably in some ways just another week. They got a few tests, so you really got to, ideally focus on those guys that you think are going to have some challenges and do everything you can to help them out.
Writing something on Dane's film this week. I thought the sequence where he scored the touchdown in Missoula and then got the tackle on the ensuing kickoff was pretty all-encompassing to what he brings to your football team. So do you agree?
Yeah, you talk about guys that have really emerged on this team that we maybe knew had a chance, but you knew it wouldn't happen. Dane's near the top of that list, and knew that he was capable, knew that nothing was going to, in his mind, slow him down from taking advantage of the opportunities just to see what the opportunities, what would they look like. And, he goes from being in the mix but not entirely in the mix early in this season offensively to, in pretty short order, he's right in the thick of things. And it's certainly his ability with the ball in his hand, but it's his blocking. And, his contributions on the special team side, I know was a big thing when we recruited him, that he would be able to do all of that. And, certainly the example that his brothers have laid before, but then Dane's his own guy too. He, his offense, his defense, his special teams, his wrestling background, he's a complete football player in a, certainly a smaller package, but he can play so much bigger than he is, and there's no moment that's too big for him at the same time.
Also, right in our senior feature on Julius Davis, that was just a coincidence, but it seems like greatest strength, greatest weakness, right? A lot of times you have to sort of channel these things within yourself. Do you see that within him in terms of his fiery nature?
Yeah, no question. I think it's being dialed in appropriately, and some guys they run hot, and that's certainly the case with Julius. And I his passion and emotion and aggression, I think that plays out with how he runs the football, and he's running hot most every moment of a game, whether he's in or out, and that's who he is. And I don't think it would work otherwise for him. But being able to channel those emotions, in particular with that situation when the game is done, we got to be able to do, or in between series or whatever. And so, yeah, I think some guys are wired in certain ways, and that's how he's wired. And I do think I have a pretty good understanding of who he is, and that's again why I wanted to protect him and get him out of that situation.
Last thing, we have seen a lot of upsets in this bracket, but the Big Sky has all three of the teams that qualified that were seeds into the quarterfinals. So what do you think that just says about the strength of the conference?
Well, I think as we got through the end of the regular season and we had played, the two other teams, our last two games, I think we felt like the three of us, are amongst the very best teams, and that's why, as it played out, Davis, did get the bye and got the seed. I think out of respect for, the team that they were. I know those two teams, Davis and Montana, didn't play each other, but ultimately, I think from our perspective, we felt like those are two really good teams, and I think we feel like we're a really good team. And being at home and being seeded is a catalyst. It can be a catalyst to success. So we've all been able to have that, through this second round, I guess, and we'll all have the ability to play at home in the quarterfinals. So, I don't know that our league was top heavy by any means. I honestly think the middle part of the league was better. So I think getting through our league, and while we only had the three teams advance, I do think our league top to bottom maybe prepared us all better for this time of year. So we'll have to see how it all plays out. But yeah, I'm not surprised. We're all still standing here at 3 of 8, and we'll see how it plays out of this weekend. Yep.
Anything else in the room?
Just Ryland Sub, any update there?
Yeah, hoping he's back. I know we tried to get him in position to play, and it just become game. It was really a game time decision, and it wasn't quite there. So, yeah, we're hopeful he'll be back.